All right, let's take a little trip back in time, all the way to October 1943. We're going to step right into the shoes of a young couple, Betty and Fred Seaver, during their very first 2 weeks of parenthood. Now, their story comes from old family records, so it's a real window into a different era. But their experience? Well, you're going to see it's something that is absolutely timeless. So let's start right here. This one question from a brand new dad pretty much sums up the whole story. I mean, he's so small. What if we do something wrong? It's that universal fear, right? The weight of all that responsibility, but also just so much love, all wrapped up into one thought. And wow, does that echo across the generations? Okay, so let's start where their new life really began, the homecoming. Picture this. It's October 27th, 1943. Betty and Fred are bringing their new son Randy home from the hospital. And yeah, the whole world is at war, but for these two, their entire universe has just shrunk down to the size of this tiny baby. So Fred is driving home just so carefully, trying to miss every single bump in the road while Betty's in the back just cradling little Randy. And get this, there's no car seat, just her arms. That detail alone, man, it just pulls you right back into another time. They pull up to their house, and it looks exactly the same on the outside, but they both know, deep down, nothing inside will ever be the same. So they walk in, they're standing there in their living room, holding this tiny baby, and you can just feel the question hanging in the air. Now what, right? I mean, where do you even put him? What's the first thing you do? Sure, the nurses gave them a bunch of instructions, but now, standing there all alone, it's just this overwhelming feeling of, what do we do? Okay, so one of the very first challenges was something most of us barely even think about today: diapers. And believe me, in 1943, this was a whole ordeal. It was this multi-step, super laborious process. You had to rinse every single cloth diaper in the toilet, then wash it by hand, and then hang it on the line to dry. Fred's reaction to all this? He just said, "That sounds disgusting." And Betty's response? It just captures the whole thing perfectly, doesn't it? Welcome to parenthood. It's all disgusting and wonderful at the same time. It's this world of messy, exhausting, kind of gross realities, but all mixed in with this feeling of total, absolute wonder. And that brings us to their first real test, a day alone. Fred had a few days off, what we might call paternity leave today, but that's over. He has to go back to his job at the aircraft factory. Which means Betty is about to be alone with 9-day-old Randy for the very first time. Now, to really understand Betty's state of mind here, you just need to know one number: 4. That's it. 4 hours. That's the total amount of sleep she was getting each night. And we're not talking 4 solid hours, right? No. This was broken, choppy little bits of sleep in between feedings. She was completely running on empty. So Fred leaves for work at 6 a.m., and that day just stretches out in front of Betty. It must have felt endless. It's just this constant cycle, nursing, sleeping, crying, changing diapers, over and over. She is feeling totally and completely alone. And then, at 10 a.m., there's a knock at the door. And that knock changes everything. You see, that knock on the door was way more than just a visit. It was a lifeline. This is really the turning point in the story. It's where we get to see the incredible power of a community, and specifically, a community of other new moms who knew exactly what Betty was going through. So there's Betty. It's 10 a.m., and she's still in her bathrobe, and she opens the door, and it's her friend Eleanor, who is also a new mom, and the relief is just so overwhelming that Betty just bursts into tears. And Eleanor, she doesn't judge. She just gets it. She brought company, sure, but way more important than that, she brought understanding. Now, Eleanor, she's basically a seasoned veteran at this point. She's been a mom for a whole 6 weeks, and she gives Betty the most incredible gift: perspective. Her advice is so simple, but so powerful. She just says, "You're doing great. The goal isn't to be perfect, it's just to survive. In these first few weeks, the fact that everyone is alive and healthy, that is a total win." And get this, Eleanor's visit wasn't just a one-off thing. Betty's friends had actually organized a whole rotation of support. They made a schedule. Someone was planned to visit every single day for those first 2 weeks. They created like a human safety net to help share the emotional and practical weight of it all. How amazing is that? And that support system, well, it went way beyond just her friends. The whole family got involved. So on November 2nd, which also happened to be the new grandpa's birthday, the entire extended family gathered to meet the very first grandchild of their generation. I mean, just try to picture it. Their little house is just crowded with grandparents and great aunts, and everyone is so eager to hold this tiny new person. You have to remember this is during wartime, so little Randy represented something huge. He was continuity, a new branch on the family tree. He was a really powerful symbol of hope for the future. And the new grandfather, Lyle, when he holds his grandson for the first time, he just declares it the best birthday present ever. You can just imagine the pure joy on his face. I mean, for him, this was more precious than any gift he could have ever gotten. Then there's the new grandmother, Emily, and she arrives with two absolutely crucial things. First, you've got the practical help, casseroles and bread, yes please. And second, this piece of just timeless wisdom. She basically gave Betty permission to let all the other stuff go and just focus on herself and her baby. What a gift. Okay, so all of this brings us to the 2-week mark and what's become a totally new reality for them. Their friends throw a pink and blue party in Randy's honor, and it really becomes this moment for Betty and Fred to kind of step back and take stock of how much their lives have completely changed. And at this party, an interesting little split happens. You've got the women all gathered together, and they're talking about the real nitty-gritty of baby care. You know, feeding schedules, sleep patterns, comparing notes. Meanwhile, the men? Their conversation is laser-focused on one thing and one thing only: the brutal, brutal reality of sleep deprivation and their survival strategies, mostly coffee. The party was lovely, for sure, but also maybe a little overwhelming. And it was on the quiet drive home that Betty and Fred had this real moment of clarity. They said it themselves. We have family, friends, community. That makes all the difference. They realized it wasn't just the two of them against the world. It was this whole incredible network of people ready to catch them. And so later that night, they're standing over Randy's crib, and Betty asks Fred the question that just sums it all up. After 2 whole weeks of this beautiful, chaotic, brand new life, how are they really doing? And Fred's answer is honestly just perfect. It's so brutally honest, a little bit funny, and it is so profoundly true for so many parents. You know, it wasn't the picture-perfect dream they might have hoped for, but it also wasn't the total disaster they might have feared. It was just real life happening right there in between. Because at the end of the day, when you get past all the exhaustion and that super steep learning curve, one ultimate truth was left. Despite all the challenges, their son was here. And he was perfect, he was precious, and he was already so completely loved. And all of this leaves us with a final question to think about, right? I mean, from cloth diapers to disposables, from a mother's arms in the back seat to a high-tech car seat, the tools we use for parenting have changed so dramatically. But that feeling Fred described, that feeling of landing somewhere between what you hoped for and what you expected, has that fundamental emotional journey of becoming a parent, has that really changed at all?